In a little over a year that MG Motor has been in India, the company has clearly focused on SUVs. So you've had the Hector, the ZS EV and the Hector Plus, and now it's time to say hello to the big brother of them all, yes, the Gloster. The Gloster was first showcased at Auto Expo back in February, and MG Motor is now ready to drive it in as the festive period beckons. It promises a whole lot of features on the inside, a massive road presence on the outside, and a plethora of other promises. But does it hold true to all the promises? We're taking a closer look today at the MG Motor Gloster SUV. A bulk of the promises made by MG when it comes to the Gloster is how imposing the SUV really is. And it really is really imposing with a huge road presence. If you are numerically inclined, here are the dimensions of the Gloster. But digits really can't do justice to a car of this size, shape and proportion. To the naked eye, the Gloster is even bigger than the numbers would suggest. But coming to the exterior styling element to begin with, the Gloster is highlighted by this massive grille, which is rather blunt, so the emphasis is on giving it a muscular profile rather than an athletic one, but it is very imposing. On the side are sharp LED projector headlights, and just below them is an inverted C casing for the fog lamps, and there are air damps on either side as well. There is a little bit of chrome on the front bumper as well, and the overall profile of the Gloster from the front is one of strong intent. Now from the side is where you can truly appreciate how large and imposing the Gloster really is. Window 1, 2 and 3 are huge, underlined by a chrome cladding here. The roof rails also get chrome, and the twin door handles are in chrome as well. Now it seems like there is a lot of chrome, but it's done very tastefully, so it's not really overbearing to the eyes. There is also a little bit of silver to break the black in this particular car, and MG very interestingly continues to underline its British genetics, and therefore you get the badge right here. The car sits on 19-inch wheels, and the alloy design, while familiar, works for most parts on the Gloster as well. The rear visual profile of the Gloster continues to highlight the wide appeal of the car itself. So you get LED taillights on the side, and while this design is something we've seen in other cars as well, it works well on the Gloster as well. Both taillights are connected with a chrome strip right here, and the very familiar, very omnipresent MG badging is present as well. This one though, you can't use to access the boot. The Gloster written in bold lettering here is perhaps the biggest highlight of the rear profile, and so are the chrome twin diffusers on either side of the car. Speaking about the boot space, there is around 340 litres of space in the Gloster with all 3 seats up, but of course you can fold the second and the third rows to make for more space. Now on a hot and sultry September day like it is today, it's really inviting to get inside a premium cabin like that of the Gloster. MG promises premium looks on the outside, but the real test of how upmarket a vehicle is on the inside. And initial impressions of the Gloster is that it's hit the sweet spot on most parts. So you get the soft leather dash all around, and the brown beige leather treatment here, which we've also seen in the Hector Plus. So you get that treatment here on the side as well. There is a large floating display which houses all your navigation, app, weather related needs, and also controls the AV features. There is a display for the driver as well, which is large and very legible, and it puts out information ranging from fuel economy to safety statistics. Coming to the seats themselves, the driver's seat gets massage functionality and are ventilated as well. So are the driver's co-passenger seat, but it does not get the massage functionality. They're nicely bolstered, the quality of stitching is quite premium, but the same cannot be said about the little bit of hard plastics still used in the Gloster, especially under the side doors. Now the biggest highlight though for me in the front seat is the large spread out center console. It houses the same cockpit style gear shift that you find in the Hector Plus, but it's now surrounded with buttons which are very easy to reach and house hill descent control, lane assist, and all the safety features that this car has on offer. On the other side, you have buttons to control the seat ventilation system, so you can adjust it for heat as well as cooling. The Gloster also offers different terrain modes and drive modes, so you can select all of that, which are rock, sand, mud and snow, through a dial here. Again, very easy to reach. In terms of storage space, it's a bit of a hit and miss because there is no dedicated space to put in your phone, so you'll have to open the charging unit and slide in your phone, and phones which are say bigger than 6 inches would probably not fit in this section. But the cover fits in nicely well and conceals the phone and any wires that may be with it. There are 2 cup holders on the side, and you get storage space under the armrest as well. Now if you consider the Gloster more as a car to be driven in rather than to drive, the real test is in the second and the third row. So let's find out what is at play there. Now assuming your car is primarily chauffeur driven, the second row seats are where you would be spending most of your time. And thankfully, the seats here and the space and the comfort is almost as good, if not as good, as for the front passengers and the driver. The seats are well cushioned, there is a decent amount of bolstering, so long journeys should be quite okay in the vehicle as well. Now the middle row and the last row passengers get their dedicated AC vents, and there are handles that you can grab onto, especially helpful when you're getting in or out of the car. Now one great feature, although a little understated inside the cabin of the Gloster, are smart storage features given all around. So you have smart storage features for your cups, and on the other side you can also store your phones and perhaps small little magazines. Last but not the least, let's take a look at the final row of the Gloster. Now for a car as big as this, I would have been very disappointed if the space and comfort level in the third row was compromised. Thankfully, and for most parts, it hasn't been. We keep mentioning how the third row seats in most cars these days are not adequate and not comfortable enough for long journeys. But my guess, in the Gloster, even the passenger in the final row won't really have much to complain about. The legroom, knee room and under thigh support are adequate, and even long journeys won't really be a problem for the third row passenger inside the Gloster. As you can see, there is adequate space, and this second row seat is quite a bit pulled back, and yet I have reasonably decent amount of knee room, adequate leg space. The under thigh support would have been a little better, but I'm really finding things to fault the car for in the third seat. And the fact that there are cup holders here are fantastic too. Ideally, I would have wanted a charging point for myself in the third row, and that's, well, absent. But overall, the third row seats are as comfortable as it can get, and if you want a little bit more comfort, you can always recline these seats a little bit more. Now after all that talk, it's time to get a move on in the Gloster. There is a 2-litre twin-turbo diesel engine inside the Gloster, and it produces 218 PS of maximum power and has peak torque of 480 Newton meters. Now while that's a lot of torque at play, it's also a lot of power, but when you start the car, the takeoff itself takes a little bit of time. So the car is a little hesitant, and that could possibly be because of the enormous weight and size that it has to get moving from standstill. But once you do take flight in the Gloster and you hit the around 2000 RPM rev band, the car really comes in its own element. But speaking about the NVH levels, it is absolutely top notch in a car that claims to be premium, so no complaints on that front. The 19-inch wheels grip the road really well, and there is a sense of reassurance that comes whether you're at low speeds, moderate speeds, or even at triple-digit speeds. What also helps the ride quality is how precise the steering wheel is. Now in a car like this, you would want it to be nicely weighted and a balance between light and a little bit of heavy feeling, so there is a lot of feedback. In the Gloster, the steering is engineered really well so that it will give you precision when you're making tight turns, or as much precision as can be expected in a car this large. And yet when you hit the triple digit speeds, the Gloster is very reassuring to be behind as well. The suspension setup on the Gloster is slightly on the stiffer side. What that means is while the car does gobble up speed bumps and speed breakers with relative ease, anything which is a little too menacing and with the car at a relatively high speed, you would probably feel the bump a little more than you would in a car with a suspension setup that's on the softer side. So for example, it did a good job there, but if I had tried doing it at a relatively high speed, I would have felt the body roll creep in. The Gloster does also offer some decent off-roading capabilities, and it has, as I mentioned previously, 4 terrain modes: the rock, the sand, the mud and the snow. There is no snow here in Delhi and Gurugram. We did put it to the test in sand and mud, and for the most parts the Gloster managed to take itself out of sticky situations with quite a lot of capability. The takeoff, I said, is slow, but let's put it to the test in a dash on an open, clear, straight road. So let's see what this car can do. By the way, I'm in sports mode. Yes, just a little hesitant. But yes, once you do hit that 25, 26, 3000 RPM mark, the Gloster really moves forward. Speed is fine, but what about the braking? Almost at point, maybe a little more bite and it would have been perfect. Not perfect, but pretty much close to it. Since we are on the topic of brakes, the Gloster features autonomous braking and front collision warning systems, which are very useful, especially in open highways when attention spans may waver a little bit. There is also lane assist warning, and here is the full list of safety features that the car offers. The Gloster is bold, it's boisterous, but most importantly, it is a bold move from MG Motor in the luxury SUV segment. We expect the pricing to be somewhere between the rupees 35 lakh to the rupees 40 lakh bracket, or perhaps a little more. And at that price point, people generally buy into a car as much as they buy into the brand. Is MG Motor that big, that luxurious a brand in India? Not quite yet, but if you look at the Gloster SUV as a stand-alone vehicle, it pretty much fits the bill and brings a whole lot to the table. What do you make of the Gloster SUV? Do let us know. Thank you so much for watching. As always, stay safe, drive safe.